Hey y'all, I'm Shauna. Welcome in or welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new video. So today we're doing something a little bit different and I hope you enjoy it and I hope I do it justice. I'm a little bit nervous about this. So back in December, I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram and suggest a video topic and I really liked the idea. So this video was suggested by Atlas, like big shout out to Atlas. For sending one of the resources, but also making the suggestion. We've had some back and forth about this. A lot of the time I talk about the negative ways that influencers can impact us online and also promote overconsumption. We don't just talk about those things, but that's a big portion of what we talk about. So today we're going to be talking about a more positive aspect of influencing. So we're going to be looking at videos that center around disability and neurodivergence. Many of the videos we're going to be looking at are stuff related, but there are also going to be things that are not stuff related. The first couple are on neurodivergence and they're not explicitly by stuff, but the latter, maybe like 4, depending on how many we watch, are people buying things or stuff that supports their life in some kind of way. So this isn't all about consumption. We have some talks about consumption, but then we also have people who are experiencing, but we're also talking about people who are sharing their own experience living with their disability or their neurodivergence. So I hope today to share some creators with you that you may enjoy watching, you might want to hear more of, and that'll be a part of today's video. And I am approaching a lot of this video with the intent of learning from creators, not to speak for them or on behalf of them, but to learn from them. And I know that my own experience is limited. I am able-bodied and neurodivergent, and so I can relate to some of what we're going to be talking about today, but definitely not all. And even when somebody might have a similar condition to me, the way that people present and experience these conditions, whether it's neurodivergency or not, lived experiences can vary greatly. So the goal of today's video is to really just learn from folks sharing their experience, and I'll talk about maybe what I learned, what I liked about the video, and we'll go from there. If I get something wrong, I would love to hear about that in the comments. And also if you want to share your own experiences with any of the topics we're going to be talking about today, I would also love to hear from you. So let's get started. And the first video we're going to watch is a video on the neurodivergent umbrella. So we're gonna watch the first one now.
Okay, so friendly reminder that neurodivergent is an umbrella term for anyone whose functioning diverges from dominant societal norms. It's not just a term for autism or ADHD, it also includes all the things listed under these neurodivergent umbrellas, and it also includes mental illnesses and mental health conditions. The creator has included mental illnesses and mental health conditions from the very beginning. It is an inclusive term, not a clinical term, not a medical diagnosis, not a medical term, non-exclusive term. Do not gatekeep.
So this first video was from Sonny, and on the screen we have a picture of an umbrella. It's called the neurodivergent umbrella, and then there is a bunch of conditions underneath. Just a few of them are ASPD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, autism, OCD, ABI, epilepsy, and then in the left bottom corner it says a non-exhaustive list. So I did not know this before watching this video, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna vet my sources because not everything on TikTok's true. And I did go looking at this term, and I also found the people talking about the creator of the term, and they are right. I have been talking in my videos as neurodivergency is separate from mental health or mental illness, and I had gone to to separating them, and I kept separating them because I thought that they were different things, but they can be talked about in the same way or under the neurodivergency umbrella. And so according to Harvard Health, neurodiversity describes the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. There is no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and differences are not viewed as deficit. I think one of the reasons why neurodiversity gets to be associated with autism and ADHD specifically is because one of the first uses was with autism, and the person who created it also had autism. And so I think that's why it is most associated with that. Just some more information, the neurodiversity paradigm suggests that because neurological differences are normal and have existed throughout human history, they should be respected, understood, and supported rather than pathologized or viewed as disordered. There is nothing to cure. Modifying the environment of neurodiverse individuals, reducing stigma, and prioritizing each person's inherent dignity will proponents argue, allow for such individuals to discover innate talents and thrive within a diverse society. One of the things that I think this term does help with is like ableism. I think some of the idea that like if you're ADHD or if you're autistic or if you're bipolar, whatever the case may be, that like you're somehow like there's something wrong with you and that it would like be better if you didn't, or like the way you think or act is wrong. And this idea, I think, is ableist, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And so I think terms like this are meant to counter some of the ableism with like appreciating that like people are different and these differences aren't inherently bad. We are now going to move on to a second video on cooking. This one was sent to me by Atlas. Hey y'all, editing Shauna here. Well, I'm here from a different day and I'm jumping in because the original video that appeared in this section has been removed from this video. And that is because somebody initiated a false copyright strike on that particular clip. I don't believe it was the creator, and I did dispute this claim, but the claimant upheld their copyright claim, which is false, as my use of these clips and any of these TikToks fall under fair use for commentary, education, and reaction. Those are separate fair use claims, but arguably this video does all three. So I am going to describe the initial video. I know that sucks and it's not the same as watching somebody make the food. The clip in question was somebody making chicken adobo and rice, and you get to hear her take and her thoughts on the recipe and the food. I'm keeping in this section because of the discussion that follows, and I think that there are some great things that the initial video or previous Shauna discussed. So let me give you some of the basics of this video so we can get into that discussion. Now, the recipe in question is chicken adobo and rice, and this is a no knives and no standing recipe that the creator has specifically designed to be disability friendly. So the creator makes the chicken in a crock pot. She places the chicken pieces inside the crock pot so you don't have to cut it, which is great. She adds in a sauce pack and then a couple of spices, and then she sets the crock pot to cook. So you don't have to stand over a stove or even potentially make this chicken in the oven. You can just kind of set it and forget it. She then makes rice with a microwave rice recipe. She adds in some vinegar, a couple of spices, and some water, cooks it off in the microwave. She plates the chicken and rice using a bowl. She puts the rice in the bowl and then puts it on the plate and then adds her chicken to it. That's the video, and now on to original Shauna. So this video is from EpicuriousExpeditions on Instagram, and she has so many recipes like this. So the description of her video is the actual recipe, like step by step on how to make this. So if you are interested in this specific recipe, I'm going to link the video and then, you can get to her account. Not going to lie, this recipe looks tasty. This is a side note. One of the ads that gets me, I'm not going to lie, I am not a sucker for many ads anymore, except for food ads. I have purchased food from watching ads and like the exact thing that have been advertised. I'm a sucker for this kind of thing. Okay. This recipe and her channel overall is good for so many different kinds of people. Like she has this recipe as requiring no standing, which is awesome. No knives, which Also great for people who may be experiencing some like mobility or strength issues with like their hands, wrists, arms. But it's also gonna be good for neurodivergent folks who just need some simple recipes out there. One thing that this video did make me think about is potentially viewing something like a crock pot or a slow cooker as an assistive device. I think on this channel I've been using accessibility tool, but I've been doing some research, and sometimes like there are certain things that are called assistive devices, but there are also things that are adaptive, sometimes like an adaptive device or adaptive technology, depending on the specific item. So I think this would be an assistive device. And assistive devices are devices and features of devices to help perform tasks like cooking, dressing, and grooming. This might also include specialized handles and grips. Devices that extend reach and lights on telephone and doorbells are a few examples. People in the comments of this video, both people with physical disabilities, but also neurodivergent folks, and also there's some people who work with people with intellectual disabilities. All of these folks are talking about how these recipes have helped them or changed their relationship with food. Somebody says, I use a wheelchair and I'm very much alone most of the time. The recipes have changed my relationship with food for the better. I'm so unbelievably grateful for this. I'm especially obsessed with the Thai green curry recipe and I can't wait to try this. Why have I never seen disability cooking before? Thank you for this. Reading some of the other comments, you can tell what an impact this has. As someone with ADHD and a dysautonomic condition, your recipes help me a lot. I have barely any energy some days, as well as the struggle with getting more complex recipes done. As a person who loves to cook but struggles with depression, thank you. The comments in this video speak for themselves with putting more intersectionality into content, and that there is a real need and desire for this kind of content. I personally wish that I knew content like this existed a few years ago, or even I wish that I viewed something like a crock pot as adaptive technologies I was mentioning earlier. There was a while where I did not eat well and my fridge was regularly empty because I was not well enough to make regular meals. I also appreciate how this creator is sharing different recipes from different cultures, which can also be appealing to like a wide variety of people. An additional way I think these recipes are beneficial is to push back on the demonization of lazy cooking. I think there's an idea out there about what real cooking looks like, which is mainly fresh ingredients, getting your cutting board out and cutting up vegetables or things like that. And like we see cooking shows like that all the time, and that certain kinds of meals, aka meals like this, are somehow not real cooking. And if you don't cook like that, if you don't cut up your chicken or if you don't cut up your vegetables, you're lazy. And also simple recipes or like no cut recipes are less than. Like it's a lesser meal, or the person doesn't have the skill. And I think this is one of the ways that ableism can be perpetuated and or potentially internalized. I think different folks are going to have different reactions to the lazy rhetoric, and it impacts different people differently. I hear about this idea from neurodivergent folks. And one thing working on this video has taught me is that I personally do have work to do with ableism as well as internalized ableism. And I'm glad to have learned that. We're now going to watch a couple videos on adaptive clothing. And the first video we're going to watch is from SarahToddHammer. She goes by StHammer on TikTok, and she shares her life as somebody living with a disability. So she's now going to show us some adaptive clothing that works for her.
Is a magnetic Tommy Hilfiger button-down shirt. It looks like normal buttons on the front, but you can see on the inside it's magnets. I can't move my left hand and my right hand is really weak, so I can't do buttons. So having magnets on clothes is so much more accessible for me. And you can see they really easily come apart. So much more simple than doing buttons. And then to close it, you just have to align the magnets on top of each other. And then they pretty much all automatically stick. They even made the cuffs magnetic. You can see there's the button, but you just pull it apart and there's the magnet, and then it sticks back together. This button down is really small on me because I haven't worn it in years and I'm also wearing it over a sweater, but you can see how simple that was for me to undo. Tommy does also include a warning label on the garment. So it says warning, has this magnet symbol, and I believe this is telling you not to wear this if you have a pacemaker. And it says magnets present, see inside for more information. If you flip the tag over, it says magnets are present and it lists some warnings. And it does say consult physician before wearing if you have an implanted medical device, including pacemakers. And if you look at the care label, it says it is 100% cotton. And to wash it, you just close all the fasteners and you can machine wash it in warm water. Obviously, not everybody can wear a garment with magnets, but for those of us who can, like me, it is so much more accessible for me than buttons or Velcro. So I'm so happy that garments like this exist.
Okay, so the title of the video, it says magnets instead of buttons on clothing for accessibility. This is a magnetic Tommy Hilfiger button-down shirt. And so this video was made in reply to a comment which says, I just saw a button-up style shirt with magnets. Had no idea those existed. I also did not know that these things existed prior to watching this video. And I went down a whole rabbit hole. I watched a couple more of her clothing videos. I've seen a bunch of her TikToks. I like listening to her. I like hearing about her life. And I also like learning from her about her daily life and like what is accessible or not accessible to her. And so, you know what? We're gonna go look on the Tommy website because I want to take a look at some other options. We're on the Adaptive website for US. I tried to get on through the Canada site. It was the first one that came out, but didn't show anything. So it just shows the clothes lying flat. Like they're not actually on people, which I don't like. I would like to see them on a person. Because how can you see the features of the clothes not on a person? Like, okay, well, look at these pants. The description of this: adjustable interior waist tab, magnetic closure on front designed to appear as a traditional button fly. Elastic pull-up loops, hook and loop closure at waist. So I don't know what this means, like what this looks like without seeing the item. Maybe if you have experience with adaptive clothing, you know what these things mean. If you have experience with adaptive clothing, can you actually I would love for you to weigh in. Got some t-shirts. Okay, these shorts, tensile pull-on shorts. Okay, I want to go to the details. Pull-on style with pull-up loops at elastic waist for easy dressing. Pull-up loops. So maybe what I'm envisioning is like a string or like a loop of fabric that you would use to pull them up instead of the short. Is that what's happening here? And also, is that more useful or helpful than pulling up the shorts themselves? Okay, we have oh, let's look at this jacket, this hooded puffer jacket. Okay, there's is it a double zipper at the bottom? It's a nice jacket. One-handed extended zipper pull to make dressing easier. Removable hoods, 2 waist welt pockets, elastic cuffs. Okay, sorry, I got distracted by the clothes. So I like seeing her use the clothing because you get a better idea of the adaptive features. I think it's awesome that adaptive clothing exists. And I did also look before this video at different brands of adaptive clothing. And it seems that Tommy is one of the more mainstream brands or like mall kind of brands that you might be familiar with that also has an adaptive line. If you have experience using adaptive clothing, I would love to hear from you. And I would also love to hear if there are like more traditional brands that have these lines that you shop through. One thing I did notice, this is just brief research, and if you use adaptive clothing, I'd love to hear from you as well, is that a lot of the adaptive clothing that I was seeing seems to be made for seniors or older folks, which are represented in the models. It is great to see older folks, people who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s in models, which you don't always see in traditional clothing, or I say more rarely seen. And a lot of those other websites I liked more because you could see the person doing like a zip on the leg or pulling on a pant. Like you could see the features. So it was more helpful to navigate, to see the clothes that you're buying. But also, as I was mentioning, the style of the clothing seemed to be more targeted at seniors. I'm sure that's not every brand. So I'm curious to know if you are, if you're somebody who uses adaptive clothing, what your favorite brands are. Okay, let's now look at a different example of adaptive clothing. Somebody who has different needs.
Here's why these shorts are accessible to me. Allow me to explain. Because of my disability, my waist never grew. Although I have a pelvis, when I sit down, I tuck it in front of me to avoid crushing my cash and prizes. So when I sit down, my body sort of spills over the front, the side, and the back of my pants. So that, dear friends, is why the elastic waistband is so important. It expands when I sit down and it contracts when I stand up. So my pants don't fall off and they don't dig into my sides and give me sores. The more you know. Shooting star. Bye!
So I said adaptive, but he says accessible. And this is Spencer West, who, by the way, I met Spencer West many years ago, and I love him. He has such great energy. I don't know him personally. I'm not friends with him. I just got to meet him. Once. So to describe this video, he's sitting in a wheelchair at first, and he then gets out of his wheelchair to model the shorts. He does not have any legs, and so he is showcasing the smaller waistband on the shorts. They appear to be children's shorts, and they're like a blue denim. I was trying to decide which video of his to watch, and I was thinking about showing a video of him driving his car, and he also has another good one that I watched when it came out of him. We had a snowstorm in Toronto and he's navigating his wheelchair in the snowstorm. I'm a big fan of Spencer's content because he has a great vibe. I love his energy, and he's also he's queer and he's from Toronto, and there's that extra sense of somebody navigating the place that you also live. And so when he's talking about how difficult or easy, as an example, it is for him to navigate in his wheelchair, I know what he's I can envision where he's talking about, or if he's showcasing a place, I know where he's talking about. So there's that extra level of resonance, which is me personally. And one thing he does a lot as well is he answers a lot of questions that both able-bodied and non-able-bodied people might have. And he's really open about his life with a disability, the challenges that he experiences, as well as just his day-to-day life, how he operates in the world. And his openness, I think, is appealing to able-bodied folks because a lot of able-bodied people are not taught how to interact with disabled folks. They don't have experience interacting with disabled folks. People who may want to be an ally but don't really know what to do. And 100% agree that it's not up to disabled folks to educate the able-bodied. It's not on their shoulders to do so. However, somebody who does have a disability, who is so open about their lives, does help to dispel some of that awkwardness or uncertainty or that uncomfortability. And so I think there are a lot of people who want to be allies who don't know how to be an ally, or maybe feel like they're rude if they ask a question can I ask this? Is it polite to ask this? And they want to do what is the right thing, but don't know exactly what that is, or how to do it, or how to be the ally. I think that's one of the reasons why his content is appealing. And I appreciated just personally seeing his content with her content, kind of in a similar conversation, because of the range of disabilities and experiences out there. And this is two people showing two different experiences, not an exhaustive list of experiences, but I appreciate as an able-bodied person learning about the different experiences, as well as some of the differences between adaptive technology or adaptive clothing versus accessible clothing. All right, we're now going to look at another Canadian content creator. I love when I see Canadians out there in the wild. It makes me so happy. So there is a creator named Heather Hutchinson, and she's blind and she is from BC, and she is sharing in this specific video about filling up a cup with hot liquids. She also shares a lot of her life navigating the world and like how she does specific things, answering questions, but we're just going to look at pouring herself a cup of tea.
I'm blind, and this is how I know when my cup is full. This is a liquid level indicator. It's especially useful for hot liquids. I just set it on the edge of my cup, or contact the cup with the kettle, and I start to pour. Boom, the cup does not runneth over. It's really a pretty simple device. Liquid touches the probes, and it makes a sound, just like that.
I think it's cool to hear how she navigates the world, and she answers a lot of questions similar to Spencer. Common questions that she gets, but also like if she does get a question, she'll put it on the screen, kind of like Sarah did in answering the Tommy adaptive magnet question. And so I think her content as well can quell some of that uncomfortability or uncertainty around people with disabilities, specifically folks who may be blind. And then also her video can be helpful for folks who are also blind or maybe would be partially blind. And one of the questions I have as a sighted person is, how does a blind person navigate the world? Like what things out there exist? And, you know, just because you don't know doesn't mean they don't exist. And we have one indicator here. I think some of the perceptions from able-bodied, or in this case, sighted people that contribute to ableism is the assumption that stuff out there doesn't exist.
Editing Shauna here. I was talking about ableism and I wasn't fully articulating what I wanted to, so I'm popping on in here. So I was talking about ableism, and I really love Heather's video, especially as a sighted person, because she helps to dispel notions of, I think, helplessness. I think a lot of sighted people can think or believe that blind people are helpless and like they can't navigate the world, or it's such a struggle to navigate the world. I think blind folks, I know blind folks know better than me what people assume about their abilities and how much independence they do or don't have. And because I think a lot of sighted people don't interact with folks with disabilities or interact with blind folks, they don't know the range of tools out there or how a blind person would navigate through their lives, how they would do everyday tasks. And so because a sighted person might not have some of these tools in their home, or might not talk with a blind person and know how they might operate in the world, they can assume that, number one, that tools don't exist, or if there are tools, maybe there's just not that many, and overall just making a lot of assumptions about how hard it must be to be a disabled person, and also how hard it must be to be a blind person. And I think a lot of this centers around, specifically with blind folks, with I think an idea of maybe like helplessness, which contributes to ableism, because I think some of those ideas go along with other ideas like poor you. And I think some sighted folks have ableist beliefs, because if it's poor you, then it's also, I wouldn't want that for myself. And I really think Heather's videos really help to counter those narratives and really showcase like a myriad of ways of how she travels, how she cooks food, how she finds lost things in her home. And we get to learn from her and learn how she operates in her life, and also how normal it is. I appreciate that so much, because I myself wonder about these things. And she's showing us real life every day.
One thing that this did remind me of, which is also a conversation I want to have, is that this to me seems like one of the things that like the Amazon sellers would pick up and then pitch as a convenience tool. Like I'm already kind of hearing the ads in my head of like, and one of the things that I've heard from folks with disabilities and people who might be neurodivergent as well are these tools that might have originally been created as tools for accessibility or adaptive tools. Amazon sellers have taken some of these tools, have taken them and like co-opted them as these convenience devices, and they're doing it to make a quick buck and also pitching it to able-bodied or non-disabled audiences. And so some of these things have been taken out of context. And one of the things I've heard from folks in this community who are neurodivergent or disabled, they've expressed like a frustration or even a sense of alienation with these kinds of videos, and are now these like convenience tools that are stripped of their original context. You click on an Amazon video and you see a tool that might be helpful to you. Some folks go, oh, this would be helpful to me in helping me do X thing. And then you see a list of comments of people saying that, like, who needs this? You must be so lazy to do this. I think I've said some of those things myself. And I can understand how somebody might feel seeing those comments and feeling like it applies to them, and maybe even thinking like, oh, am I lazy? Am I the problem? And I'm personally sorry for contributing to that narrative. I think that there are two things that can also be true at once. These tools are being pitched out of context in situations that do not apply in order to get people to impulse buy things they don't need. That can also be helpful in different contexts. I am wondering to my community how you feel about these things, how you feel about these Amazon videos, or how you feel about this kind of technology, or if these videos have changed your relationship with your stuff, or did they let you know about some things that may be helpful to you? When I make my Amazon videos, I try to think about the disability context, but I know I don't always get that right either. And whenever I do make videos, I hear people say, oh, this would be helpful for me for this reason. And I always appreciate that perspective. All right, we're going to do one last video on adaptive technology. And there is this, I was going to say Instagram, it's Instagram. It's TikTok. There is this TikTok account, and I need to go to their page. They're called TechOWLpa, and they 3D print assistive devices or adaptive devices. So I'll show you two of their videos. One of them we're not going to do with sound. The other one will have sound. So you can see a bit of their range.
This adaptive device got a lot of attention and lots of questions, so here are some responses. First, this device is for people with disabilities who might not be able to hold a pen. You can use this device with both your left and right hand. This device works best with thinner markers and pens. And lastly, all the files are free on PrintLab's website. If you see something you don't understand, it might help a disabled person.
Okay, so we'll start with the second video first because it has one item. So this is a utensil or device that you hold like a mouse and you put a pen inside. So if you have difficulty using a pen, dexterity or mobility, it's like an alternative and potentially easier way to hold the pen. So if using a mouse is something you can do and feels like relatively normal or easy to do, then this pen device may be like a good option. Sorry, my mic was low. And then the first video we watched was a collection of items. We had a one-handed nail clipper. Instead of using two fingers, you would use like one hand to press down on the nail clipper. And then a one-handed page holder for a book. A kind of like a screw device that goes on top of a bottle cap that you want to open. So instead of having to like grip a bottle cap like this, you could grip it. I think it has like a wider grip. You could grip from either end or use two hands to twist it, potentially. They also have a different device you could use for a pen. It's a different grip than the first one we watched. They also have a soda can or like a pop can gripper. So it grips it grips your soda can by the top and the bottom, and then you would hold it like the handle of a mug, which I can assume it would be lighter because it's like 3D printed. And the second to last item is a device that will help button the shirt. So instead of having your fingers go to each button, you'd put the button inside and then loop a device through. And then the last one was a device that helps hold the grocery bags. So instead of having to hold the grocery bags by their like small handles, you hold a one wider handle and you can load one or multiple grocery bags on it with like kind of like hooks. So those are the items that they feature. I really like this account because they are often asking their community what would be helpful to you, what would you like would this device be helpful? So they're getting feedback from their community. So just because they produce a tool doesn't necessarily mean that it's one that needs to be added to the catalog. And if it's not effective, it can be adapted or improved by the impact or input, from their community. They also can send you instructions to 3D print your own devices. I know one of my libraries has a 3D printer, so I could theoretically get the instructions from them and then take them to my library and 3D print it, which is so cool. And so they showcase so many tools, which is objectively, I think in my opinion, although it's an opinion, it's not objectively, I think it's objectively cool. I was sitting there watching their videos for like half an hour the other day. I like these guys because they're meeting real demand for tools that maybe don't exist or may be hard to come by elsewhere. And I also like what this made me think of, because this is just on my mind personally, is plastic. And I have been really leaning into the plastic research and thinking about plastic and just kind of trying to navigate that personally. And I think one of my own problems that I have perpetuated on this channel is like a black and white thinking about plastic, that like all plastic is bad, which is not true, because there are some things that the most accessible version of that thing is plastic. And then there's also like one thing I've learned from you guys is like health equipment, health tools and devices that basically need to be made out of plastic in order to be sterile, because they need to be thrown out in order to be sterile. And so it makes the most sense for these things to be made out of plastic. I think a black and white view of plastic is a bad thing, and something that this video really made me consider. I've personally been thinking too rigidly about plastic, and that perpetuating that idea on this channel is not a great thing, because it can absolutely be isolating or alienating to people who may use convenience, let's say convenience foods as an example, which is something that's been highlighted to me before. And I think in my mind have like made exceptions, like, oh, if you are a disabled or neurodivergent folk who is leaning on convenience food is not a problem, but making exceptions still thinks of plastic in a black and white way when it is not. And some things may be best made out of plastic. It doesn't change the overall like reduction in plastic that is necessary, but that does not mean that these are the things that need to be reduced, or thinking about plastic in black and white terms as an example. Do you get what I'm saying? And I don't want to alienate people. I don't want people to like feel bad about the way that they might be consuming plastic in their life, whether that's convenience food or 3D printing devices at their library, or buying stuff that are ultimately accessibility tools. I don't want to have a hand in that negativity. So I'm glad I saw this video personally for those plastic reasons, but also for learning about accessibility tools and the kinds of things.
So my video cut out in the middle of my sentence and I had no idea, so I never got to sign off. So editing Shauna is here. So I want to thank y'all so much for watching, and I hope that you like this video. I hope it was okay. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. If you want to see more videos like this, looking at more creators or more videos from these creators, because y'all, I could watch videos from Sarah and Spencer all day long, all freaking day long. We could have like a Spencer and Sarah power hour over here. So if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. And links for relevant stuff is going to be in the description. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again around here soon. Bye.